Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tipper's Den. My name is Whitney, and it is time for another Monday Musings. Now, generally, what I've been doing is, kick off my shoes here, on my Monday Musings, just chatting about the week before. But this month has kind of been, the past month in July has been crazy. And so basically today what I'm doing is I'm going over my July wrap up, and I'm also just going to talk about my August TBR as well. I'm not playing another round of my TBR game because I had several that I did not get to, and so they're just continuing on into August. That was kind of my plan this year. For the most part, though, I've been doing my games monthly. Other than January and February, it was a 2-month round. But it's just basically either until I read the books or until I decide, you know what, I want to put what I have left back on my shelves and do a new round. Or like, excuse me, Aurelium. If I haven't finished my TBR game stuff, like obviously I'm focusing on Aurelium, and so like in April they just went back on the shelf. Things like that is kind of how it's been working. But today we're going to talk about the books I did get read in July, and then the books I plan to read in August. So everything that's continuing on, and any extras that I'm adding on to that as well. There's actually, so we worked on cleaning out the spare room, and then I worked on my library. I did do a new library tour. If you missed that, I'll leave that link down below. So that took up a lot of my time. I listened to several audiobooks, and then most of what I read otherwise was either like middle grade, young adult, or manga. And so, yeah. I did add on quite a few extra short books, and that's because Kim from Expedition Through Pages game that I participated in, I'm on Team Dryad. There was the mid-month challenge, which was a box of chocolates. And it was funny because like when I first started that, it actually worked out really well. The books I was reading at the time, they were quick reads, and they worked for the chocolates I was pulling. And the whole deal with the chocolates was you had to pull one at a time, complete that prompt before you pulled your next chocolate. And you could skip a chocolate prompt, but you couldn't go back to it later. So if you skipped that chocolate was just done. So I had a handful that was actually like worked really well. The chocolates I would pull worked really well for what I was reading. And then I skipped quite a few. And then I got a romance book, and that was during everything, and it took me forever to read that romance book. And then a few days ago, I just happened to get prompts like a short story collection, a very thin book, things like that. So I added on a bunch of extras, but they were very short. And so yeah, there was also 7 days that I did not read at all. Not all in one week, but just throughout the month. There were 7 days total that I just didn't read anything, and that included yesterday. Yesterday I was not feeling well at all, and so I decided I just wanted to work on my reading journal, and I didn't really feel like reading or anything like that, which works for me because I'm like, the end of the month is the end of the month, and so I just knew like, okay, I'm not going to read anything today, and I'll just work on my journal and then just go to bed, and it'll work out fine, and it did. And so I worked on my reading journal yesterday, which was the 31st. When I'm filming this, you guys will, of course, will be seeing this on I think it's the 3rd. So, but yeah, I worked on my reading journal, had fun with that. But let's go ahead and go into stats for July 1st, which, so like I said, I had 7 days I didn't read at all, but otherwise my average count for the 31 days was 89.19 pages per day, which is really low for me personally, and then 1 hour 35.64 minutes per day as far as the audiobooks go, because I did listen to a lot of audiobooks. Let's see my stats here if I can find that page. So as far as stats go, I did read 18 books, which was, of course, really good. But like I said, that's the thing about the number of books. Like, it's not always equal, because there was manga, there was middle grade, there was really short books and things like that. But I did read 18 books total. DNFs were 0. I didn't have any DNFs, Physically, I read 11 books. I had 2 ebooks, actually, which I rarely read ebooks, so that was good. And then I had 5 audiobooks. My page count between the physical and the ebooks was 2,765 pages, and that does include 2 books that I partially read. My audio hours were 49 hours and 25 minutes. Fiction, I had 17 fiction, 1 nonfiction, and 1 reread. My top moods were 9 adventurous, 7 mysterious, and 5 funny. Genres, again, these kind of overlap, so there's more genres than what I read. But I had 8 that fit the fantasy genre, 6 mystery, 5 horror, 3 young adult, 3 romance, 3 manga, 2 middle grade, 2 science fiction, 2 contemporary, 1 magical realism, 1 thriller, 1 short stories, which actually was 3, I would say. But story graph, like a couple of the books, it didn't have the information on them, so that's fine. Anyway, and then 1 historical. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. We're gonna go ahead and go through my star rating. So as always, I start from the bottom and work my way up to my favorite of the month. And for my purposes, DNFs are 1 stars. And then I also have a top 3 that doesn't correspond with star rating. It's just what sticks out in my mind, what was really impactful or is going to stay with me longer than the others. And I will cover what they were for my game as well as I go through them. So as far as DNFs, as I already said, I did not have any, so no 1 stars, and I did not have any 2-star reads either, which is fantastic. And then I only had 2 3-star reads. So the first 3-star read I had, this was for the chocolate pull, and it was just to read a very thin book, so it wasn't for my game or anything like that. And you can see this book is tiny. And it's The Problem with Margaret Hennessy by M.E. Hansen. I got this in a Pango order. I don't remember if I added it on because, like, just trying to, add on for a discount or free shipping or whatnot, or if the seller threw it in. It's a very short book, and this one, I think I could have enjoyed it more if it was a longer story, like even a bit more of a novella. It's only 29 pages, I want to say. So it's not very big at all. It's very short, and yeah, 29 pages. And it kind of takes a turn in the middle that is what threw it off for me. Which the turn it took is things I would typically like, but in this case, because it was so short, it just like came out of left field, and I was like, wait, what? And so you're following this woman, Agatha, and there's this other woman in the church that is just so perfect seeming. She has the perfect looks, the perfect husband, the perfect kids. Like she's this perfect little Christian housewife. And so she's like really negative, and her one friend's like, no, you need to go talk to her. Like, nobody's perfect. Like, just go talk to her, get to know her. And so she ends up going, and she's like, hey, like, can we meet up? And so she goes over to the house. And the first thing that threw me, like, she eats the cinnamon roll that this perfect woman baked. And, like, she's having, like, these, like, flashbacks, which was weird. And then the twist that happens kind of explains that a little bit more. But yeah, I think if the author just focused on that, like, you have these women and they're a little bit older and they're kind of comparing themselves to other, which I think we all do, whether no matter what age you are, we compare ourselves and our lives to others. And I think if the author just focused on that with as short as it is, and then maybe, they get to talking and she's like, oh, I have this problem and this problem, and realize like her life's not as perfect, that would have been fine. But that twist, like it just came out of left field. And I just like, I don't know. I don't know, like I think I might keep this. I don't know. It is actually signed by the author, but yeah, it was just kind of like one of those weird out of left field like twists, and in such a short book, like I just couldn't get behind it. The next one was for my family book club pick, and I did actually listen to it. And it was for, let me find here. I think I know what it is for. Okay. And so we had Eeyore, and it was mental health rep. So this one I wasn't sure, but when I looked it up, it said yes. And I do think it kind of fits, like it doesn't really delve into it as much, but she definitely has like childhood trauma and such. And that's Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. So like I said, this was my family book club pick. I only gave it 3 stars. I listened to it. I love the narrator. The narrator was fantastic, but I was kind of bored throughout. Like a lot of like character focus. Um, which wasn't my favorite. Like we got kind of a grasp on the characters and like their issues and such, like right off the bat, and then she just kept with like the flashbacks to their childhood and such. I kind of kept harping on it, and I wanted more like death and trying to figure out what's going on. But my mom and my sister absolutely loved this. Like they loved it. I also saw one of the twists at the end. Like I didn't quite know like the mechanics of what was going on, but I did know one of the big twists at the end, and I saw that coming early on. And I think if I hadn't seen that coming, it might have changed for me. But at that point, I was like, yeah, I knew that. Which doesn't always have, like, sometimes I can see the twist coming and I still enjoy like the process to how we got there. But in this case, it just fell short for me. I was kind of bored throughout it. It felt too long, like because I knew early on kind of what was going on, and it was just like, and it was just a lot of look into these different characters. This family, basically, the premise is you have Nana, and the family is a bit estranged from each other, but they all end up coming for Nana's 80th birthday, and she ends up dying, and then there's another murder that follows, and so it's just kind of like, and they're all trapped on this island because the tide has come in, so they're all trapped for 8 hours, and they have to figure out like who's doing this, like what's happening, which isn't my favorite type of thing anyway. It's kind of based on Agatha Christie, I think, and then there was none. And so yeah, it wasn't quite for me, but my family really enjoyed it. So if you're more of like a closed door mystery type, whodunit type person, you probably would enjoy this more than I did. But I did really enjoy the narrator. I enjoyed the characters overall. Very unlikable family. Like they all have issues. And then our main character has had problems with her heart from a young age. So that plays a big part in it as well. And so she does have like some childhood trauma from that, and plus just how horrible her family is and such. So yeah, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't quite my thing either. But my mom and sister loved it, so I'm glad they enjoyed it, even if it wasn't quite for me. Then we ended up with 9 4-star reads. The first one was an extra one for, again, that mid-month challenge for Kim's game. I needed to read an African author. And so because it was extra, I was looking, what books do I have that are short? And I had Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. This one, again, very short. It's like 90 pages. I do appreciate there's a lot of depth in here, as far as like the cultural aspect and such, and kind of that conversation of moving forward, while still honoring your culture and whatnot. And so we're following Binti, and she kind of runs away from home. She has this opportunity to go to this academy on this different planet, but her family doesn't want her to go, and they're like a very small um, community and a lot of ties to the land and such. And so she has like I forget what it's called, but um, the clay that they put on their skin and such. And so she only has like a limited supply of that. So that plays a big prominent part in here as well. And so, like I said, I really like that cultural tie, but she ends up on the ship, and there's this race of aliens that are kind of at war with the other aliens, and so they basically end up hijacking the ship, and things ensue from there. Um, it didn't really stick in my mind too much, and I think because it's so short, um, I struggle with short stories and novellas and such because I just think in story form they don't give you enough depth and for the story they're telling. Like I just think I just don't get enough to really become invested in the story. And there is a caveat to that, which I'll talk about in a little bit when I get to that one. But yeah, for this one, it just didn't really stick in my mind. It was a quick read. I found it interesting, and I really did appreciate like that cultural aspect and like her trying to navigate like holding on to that culture, but also being like, like I want to move forward, I want to progress. So yeah, it was it was what it was. It was so short, and it hasn't really stuck with me at all. So there's that one. Then I had another one from my game, and this one was for where is it? Pinocchio, which was middle grade or younger. And so for this one, I did Empty Smiles by Katherine Arden, which is the fourth book in the Small Spaces Quartet. I also read the third book, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I love the vibes of this one. So you're following these three friends. There's also another one that ends up jumping in, but I won't say anything. You have Coco, Brian, and Ollie. And so there's this smiling man. In the first one, they go on this field trip, and that's when they're first introduced to the smiling man. And then the series just continues from there. And in this one, it's like circus themed, and I really like that. But something happens in the third book that the way the characters react to it, and then the setup for this book are completely different. And so that, like, I just couldn't quite get past that. I did appreciate in this one, like, the adults in the story are actually becoming involved, which I appreciated. But the main reason, like, it kind of dropped down for me was because it was inconsistent with that ending of the third book, and I just couldn't quite get past that. But I did enjoy it overall. I love the vibes of this middle grade horror, really love the vibes of it. So there was that one. Then I'm going to kind of talk about the next three altogether. So we have Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, Volume 0, Volume 1, and Volume 2. And I forgot, Empty Smiles, excuse me, did work for one of the chocolates. It was to read a book that's part of a finished series, and this is a finished series. So there was that. And then this manga series worked for the chocolates as well because it was to read one of the chocolates I was pulled to read two books with similar covers. So I used Volume 0 and Volume 1 for that one. And then the other one was to read a book featuring theft. And so I read the second volume for that. So this series, I have read Volume 1 before. I found it randomly at a thrift store. For this, I put it in the spot. I had landed on a black, and so we got a bookworm, which was a manga or graphic novel. So obviously, sorry, I'm not holding it right. It works for that. They're all mangas. And then I also got Tigger, which was fun, fun, fun. And these books are very fun. And then plus there's three of them, so it kind of worked in that respect as well. And so in Volume 0, this is actually the original. You're following this girl at the school, and there's these 7 mysteries in this school. And one of them is Hanako, who haunts the toilets. And if you go and summon them and make a wish, they'll grant your wish. And so that's the whole premise. The first one, Volume 0, was the original like concept for this. And they were kind of like 3 standalone little serials. I don't know what they're called. And then it also has the author's debut manga included as well, which I really enjoyed that one. I forget which that one is called. Let me just look here. My Dear Living Dead, which was a one-shot comic. So this one I actually found on Pango, and I got it from Pango. And so it was like the original concept. Then you move on to volume one, which was a reread for me. So I actually had two rereads. I forgot I had read this one, so I needed to update that because I had two rereads. And this one is like the same kind of premise as volume zero. So took that concept that he started with, or they started with, and then kind of expanded on it and changed it a little bit to work a little bit better. So like in this one, volume zero, it's she wants to get revenge on a boy, where this one she wants a boy to like her. Is kind of her wish. So there's that, and there's these 7 mysteries in this school. And so, like, this first one isn't very cohesive, um, as far as like the different spooks is what they're called. Not very cohesive. Like, you have a mermaid at one point, like, it kind of jumps around a little bit, but then it ends on a cliffhanger, and then we move into volume 2, and that one's a lot more cohesive, and I really loved this one. That's why it was my favorite, because it was a little bit more cohesive as far as like the themes and such, and tackling these mysteries of the school. And there's these little creatures in this one, which is what worked for the theft, because they still stuff from the students. And I also liked in these, like, the rumors that go around help power these mysteries and such. So it's such a fun series. A little bit silly, but absolutely enjoyed these very much and had a great time with them. Definitely going to try to get my hands on more from this manga. And so, yeah, had a fantastic time with those 3 as well. I'm going to move everything here. And then let's see here. We had another digital book, which was just extra for a chocolate, which was to read a cozy read. And Amazon's been doing those collections of like short stories from different authors. And so I chose, they have a new one by Heather Fawcett, and I don't remember the little series that they're doing with it, but the one by Heather Fawcett is The Labyrinth of Honeybees. And I've read Heather Fawcett before, very cozy. This one, there was cozy aspects to it, but not as cozy as like her other stuff. And again, just a 4-star because I wanted more. Like, it's really hard to get invested, and you just don't get as much as you need in my mind. But I really did enjoy it. So basically, there's this king that has taken over this kingdom, and so they follow the new gods, which there's 3 different ones, and they are kind of trying to oust the old gods, which there's like 80 something of those. But they sent their heir to this place, um, to worship or to visit this god. I don't really remember why they sent this heir there, but the heir disappears, and so this inquisitors show up. So our main character is the priestess, of this goddess, and there's like this labyrinth to get to the temple and such. And so the inquisitors trying to find out what's happened. 2 of the tax collectors have passed away. Their bodies were found washed down river. And so he comes and he's trying to figure out what happened, but she's also a little nervous because it's like, well, obviously this is a temple to one of our old gods. So, like, are you going to do something as well, as, trying to figure out who murdered these tax collectors and what happened to this heir? I think overall, like, it was very, you got a lot of background on the characters. So, like, yes, I wanted more depth and such, but for what you did get quite a bit of background on the characters, and the plot was very good. But again, I need more when it's a story, but I really enjoyed it overall. I love Heather Fawcett's writing, so that's not really that much of a surprise. Then this is the one that I kind of got stuck on, because I chose it for the chocolate to read a romance. and this one was for just a free pick. So I just had a free choice as one of my picks, and so I chose this one because the third one in this series I plan on reading for Christmas. And so that was the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore. I did start this one when I started all the other projects and such. And so my mental capacity wasn't there. And yeah, overall enjoyed it. I just felt like the relationship, there wasn't a lot of progression there. It was a lot very repetitive as far as the conflict. Noah, our main character, male character, is very kind of insecure. And I did like the aspect, like you can understand why, and he's 5 years younger than our main female character, but there was no progression. And the lack of communication, not really miscommunication, just the lack of communication and assumptions about what the other person's feeling, which again, he's 5 years younger. He's only 25. Cute little baby back here. Too cute. All right, well, it's me again. My mic cut out while I was recording, which when I ended the video, I noticed the light wasn't on, and I was like, oh shoot. And I was hoping it cut out towards the end of the video, but it cut out while I was talking about the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. I already put all the books away. I don't really feel like getting them back out, so I'm just going to insert pictures from here on out. And yeah, because I already filmed this and I'm going to refilm it. Luckily, I got actually through quite a few of the books and all the stats and such, so that's at least something. But I was saying in the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore that he was like 5 years, which isn't too bad, but when you're in your 20s and then going into 30s, the older you get, the less age really matters, but the younger you are, the more significant it is, I think. Um, but yeah, his insecurities, why it made sense, was just a little bit heavy-handed, and then the miscommunication and the assumptions about how the other person felt didn't really work for me. There was just no progression, and there was a third act conflict, which was fine. And I wish their relationship had progressed and they actually communicated with each other. And then when that third act conflict happened, it would have been fine, but it was just kind of a bit of a letdown. But I still, love that town, and I do enjoy the characters and the writing overall. So yeah, overall not bad. Obviously, I gave it 4 stars. I just didn't fully love it. Then we had Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. This one was just for the regular Dryad prompts. One of our prompts was we had to do a bingo board of all the other prompts, and the pirates had got in 3 random countries, and it was kind of my fault that they got that one. And one of the countries was Jamaica, so Nicola Yoon was born in Jamaica. She's a Jamaican American author, but she was born in Jamaica, and so I used it for that one. And then it was for my game. I had gotten Coco, and it was to be a colorful cover. And I really enjoyed this one too. I thought it was really cute. It is young adult. And so we're basically following the main character. I forget her name. I'm not good with names at all. Um, the male interest, the love interest is named X. So we're following our main character, and her parents have just gone through a divorce. Her father's getting remarried. And it was kind of a situation where her father cheated on her mother. And so she's having a lot of conflicting emotions about that. Then she runs into this old lady, like she used to love reading romance novels, and she decides just to drop all her romance novels off to a little free library because she doesn't believe in love anymore. And she runs into this old lady, and now all of a sudden, when she sees a couple kiss, she can see the end of their relationship. So she's really struggling to navigate that. And she ends up at this dancing studio, and then she starts to take lessons, and she gets paired up with X to compete in this competition. And it's kind of important because it'll help save the dance studio because they're kind of struggling. And I just wish the dancing had been more part of it. Like, it was a major part of it, but they really kind of get to know each other outside of dancing. which is fine, but I don't know, because of the title and such, like, I wanted them to be getting to know each other, like, why they're in lessons to dance, and it was really more outside of that, and interactions with their friends and such, which again was fine. Like, I enjoyed the aspect. I just wanted more of the dancing, but it was a cute story, and I really enjoyed like the depth of it with her struggling to navigate her relationship with her father, her relationship with relationships and what she believes in, and even her relationship with her mother, because her mother's like really trying to foster, a relationship between our main character and her father. And she's like, why? He cheated on you. Like, why are you not okay? And so I really like kind of those conversations. I thought those were really good. And I do have two other books by that author, which now I'm even more excited to get to. So that's great. And then we have Ghosts of Talkeetna. I'm probably mispronouncing that. If you're from Alaska, I'm sorry. And it's by Sarah J. Birdsall. And so this one was an extra one. It was for one of the chocolate pulls, and I needed to read a collection of short stories. And so this is the nonfiction book, and it's about this town of Talkeetna in Alaska. And I really like that it kind of goes into the history of the town, and then the author's experiences in this town, and then recollections from other people she knows in this town about these different sites where there's supposed to be hauntings. And I do believe in the supernatural, and I love, like, I watch like ghost hunting shows on YouTube all the time. I really love that type of thing, especially when there's a historical element to it, which most oftentimes there is. And so I really enjoyed the vibes of it. I think I could have appreciated it more if I had any sort of connection to Alaska, but I don't. So there is that. And I think for the most part, like, it's your standard, what you would expect from ghostly encounters. Um, Minus one, which I honestly think they were embellishing. Um, but that's the only story in there that I thought, well, that's not very believable at all. Everything else like made sense for what you would expect from ghostly encounters in this historical little town, which, started off very remote and such, and now is more of like a touristy type town. So I really love the vibes of it and such. So that one was my last 4-star read, and then we had 7 5-star reads. So first up there is the third book in the Small Spaces Quartet. It was for my 3 unusable discs. So I had to deal with the number 3 in some way. And so I used Dark Waters by Katherine Arden. It did work for a chocolate pull with a book featuring mountains, because the one character, he lives in a cabin in the mountains, and like one of the first lines is about these mountains, and then it takes place on a lake, but they see the mountains in the distance and such. So the mountains are part of the story. And I really like this one, obviously. I don't know if I enjoyed book 1 more or this one more. I really liked like the water element, and then there's like this mysterious island, which was really fun. And yeah, I just had a really great time with it. The parents were a little bit more believable in this one. I mentioned in the fourth one that they were a little bit more involved. In this one, they're still kind of out of the loop, but they behaved more appropriately, like more like parents, I would say. So I like that aspect, and I just had a great time with it. The whole series is a lot of fun, even though like book 2, I had some things I didn't like about it, and then book 4, because of the inconsistency following book 3, I struggled a little bit with that one. But overall, the series as a whole is a lot of fun for a middle grade horror. I really had a great time with that one. Then we had my other digital book, The One Who Held the Flame by Tomas. I don't know how to pronounce this last name, so of course the cover's up here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name because I know I'm not going to get it. And this one was, I needed to read a short story. It was on Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't have to pay for it or anything like that. And this one, so, I mentioned multiple times now that short stories, like little novellas and short stories and such, I just struggle with, because I just don't think you get enough depth to them. In this case, because it wasn't really about the characters and it wasn't really about the plot, it was about the lesson. That's what really worked for me. And so in this one, you don't get any names, but you're following this hunter and then the younger brother and their friends. And so the younger brother is the younger brother of a different hunter. And so you're following them, and they're going on their first hunt for this village. And things just kind of go wrong and something happens, and so you're dealing with, like, there's so much to unpack in a 9-page book. You have the coming of age story, the like lessons to be learned, because the one is very, like, he gets very impatient because things go wrong and it's not going right, and then he doesn't necessarily listen to those who can teach him how to hunt and how to do it right. He's not listening because he's frustrated and impatient, and things go wrong, and then you're dealing with grief, and there's kind of this ritual this small village has around grief, which I really liked, like that. But you see, like, two iterations of grief and how destructive grief can become, not just for yourself internally, but for those around you as well, especially in a situation like this where it's a small village. And it was just like there's so much to unpack in there. And I just absolutely loved it. Grief is also kind of a little bit of a buzzword for me. I tend to really enjoy stories that have a grief element to it. Like, I really, they work for me really well. So there was that one. Then we had Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. I did listen to this one. This one was for, what was it for? I don't remember. Let me tell you here since I find it. So I had got an Alice in Wonderland, and it just needed to be a sci-fi, and it was a cat pick. So the cats picked this one for me, and it was not for a chocolate pool or anything like that. And it was just for my game. And I had, like, I remember listening to the first one a year or two ago. It was also because of Kim's game that I ended up picking up the first one. And I really enjoyed it. And so I had listened to it. And so I knew I kind of wanted to listen to this one again. And fortunately, Libby had it available. So even though I had the physical book, I did listen to this one. The narrator is fantastic. And again, you have this novella, and normally they don't work for me, but the Murderbot series, for whatever reason, the first one and this one both worked really well. And I think it's because it kind of is like a TV show where, you have like the background plot, but it's like one of those shows where each episode is kind of their own self-contained story. And I think that's what works for me with the Murderbot series. And so you're following Murderbot, and he's trying to get answers about his own past. And along the way, he picks up another contract. And so he's trying to keep these people safe. Or they, sorry, I always say he. And I know Murderbot does not have a gender. So yeah, they pick up this contract, and it was just really enjoyable. Again, the plot is well done. You get enough, like, background and such, and it was really well done because the author covers, like, some things that happen in the first, like, summarizes it within this short novella of the second one, and does so in such a great way that you kind of know what's happening. And yeah, and then the self-contained plot line for this one was enjoyable and wraps up nicely and everything like that. So I just had a fantastic time with Murderbot again. Then we had my other reread, and this one I just needed an audiobook, and again, Libby had it, and I saw it, and so that was Voice of the Ocean by Kelsey and Peach K, who is a Sims YouTuber. And I remember when she first announced she was writing this book, I was so excited, and I waited so long to get my hands on it, and then when it came out, I grabbed it and read it right away and had such a fun time. And then this time I listened to it on audiobook, and I loved it just as much. Like, it's still like the things that hit so hard the first time around hit so hard again. And I'm very happy because yesterday I got the email about the second book finally, because it does kind of end on a cliffhanger. And so finally, the email was sent out, and so the second book is releasing in April. I'm definitely going to be I'm not a big pre-orderer. Like, I don't like to wait. So I prefer, if I'm waiting, I want to order it and then have it arrive instead of ordering it and then forgetting about it. So the second book, I think, is The Heart of the Moon, is going to be out in April, and I'm so very excited for that. And so I'm kind of glad I reread this at this point, because I'll still have it fresher in my mind when the next book comes out in April. So that's very exciting. But basically, we're following Celeste, and it's a a Little Mermaid retelling. And so we're following Celeste, and she's a siren, and she ends up saving Prince Raiden. And so her mother's like, I can't help you, like the council, there's nothing I can do, even though I'm the queen and I'm your mother. So, but I can, as queen, send you on a mission. And so her mission is to basically make it right. So now she has to unalive Prince Raiden, and then she can come back to the kingdom. Um, and so, yeah, it's her adventure. She goes and infiltrates Prince Raiden's crew, and then they're after this treasure. And so um, she's just part of the crew while they're after this treasure. And so I really like how Kelsey did. She did like the Little Mermaid in the beginning. You see like the parts of the Little Mermaid, and then it just kind of takes a turn from there. And I just can't wait to see what she does in book 2, because where it's left, it's like, how do you come back from that? I'm very excited about it. And like I said, the parts that really hit me the first time around hit me again. Like, there's one part where he sends her the dog Admiral, and it was just like, oh my gosh, and that hit so hard again. And so I'm just very, very excited that we finally have news on book 2. So yeah, there's that one. Then I listened also to The Bookwoman's Daughter by Kim Michelle Richardson, which is book 2 in that series. I do believe there's a third book, which I'm very excited to try to get now. And like I said, I did listen to this one as well. This one was for, it was our last square, so it was Puss in Boots shoe slash boot theme. So there is boots on the cover, and then it even worked more perfectly for that, because in the beginning, like, she's kind of trying to follow in her mother's footsteps. So the first book, we're following, I forget her name, but basically she's one of the blue people of Kentucky, but she becomes part of the pack horse library. And so she's taking library books out to rural areas and such. And so in this book, we're following Honey, and she's trying to basically follow in her mother's footsteps. And something happens, which I don't want to give any spoilers. So she's more kind of on her own at this point. And so her parents have protected her. And so now she's kind of seeing the prejudice and such for the first time. And she's kind of having to keep herself safe, and she's trying to follow in her mother's footsteps. But basically, there's this mule, and in the beginning, she ends up losing one of her boots, and then she's like trying to find it, and then the mule ends up running off, and she loses her boot again. And so it was a little bit more prevalent than I thought, like, not just on the cover and such, but actually part of the story as well. So that was a lot of fun. And that was not for like a chocolate or anything like that. So it didn't count for anything. But I really like this one. I like the plot of it. I do wish we had gotten a little bit more at the end, like a little bit of a follow up. But past that, like the characters, and again, you have the prejudice of her being one of the blue people, and how that affects her life and such. And it was just really well done. And I liked, seeing how, again, kind of this coming of age aspect, and how she's like trying to follow in her mother's footsteps and such. It was really good. And like I said, the narrator they had for Honey was perfect. For the story was just perfect. Then again, just an extra one that I ended up listening to because I just needed an audiobook while I was doing everything. I listened to Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. I think right now this is my favorite T. Kingfisher book. I read some of the horror books. I read, The Saint of Steel, the first 2 books in that one. Sword Heart, read that. And this one just really worked for me. It's a Snow White retelling. So I read 2 retellings this round. And yeah, it just really worked for me. I like how we have older characters that don't necessarily fit beauty standards. This one, she's kind of like this old spinster who's really into poison. And so we're following our character, again, names elude me, and basically she gets contacted by the king. Um, he has murdered his wife, and his other daughter has passed away, and his the daughter he has left, Snow, is very, very sick. So he wants her help to try to figure out what's going on with her. And so she's trying to determine that. There's this cat, there's a little bit of a romance, which I really, really loved. I liked how it didn't take over the story. It wasn't the main point of the story, it didn't take over it, but it also didn't feel pointless either. And it was really cute. Like, I love the romance in here. And yeah, I just had a fantastic time with it. Again, the way you see those parts of the original story, but she does something completely fresh and different with it, was fantastic. And so I did get a copy of that. So I now have a physical copy because I loved it so much. And like I said, that was just an extra book. And then we had A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. This is the first one in the Mirror Visitor Quartet, and this was a rollover from the previous month. I don't think it worked for. It was for. Sorry, I lied. It was for one of the Dryad team prompts, which was just a free pick, and I slotted it in there because it was my first read of the month. Because I did roll it over from the previous month, where it was for the prompt of. Was it for anything? Yeah. Um, so I had gotten a bookworm, same book as Last Person, which normally I go into the store and ask what was the last book they sold. But I ended up just looking for a haul on YouTube because I wasn't in the right frame of mind to go out in public. And I found Tori Talks' May haul, and they had hauled A Winter's Promise, and so I used that for that prompt. And it was my favorite book of the month. I absolutely love it. So we're following, I believe her name's Ophelia, but again, not good with names. And basically, in this world, the world has split apart, and so you have different arcs. And so on her arc, it's like very like they have a family spirit, and they're all basically descended from this family spirit. So it's like this big like extended family essentially, and she's able to touch objects and kind of see into their past and then like read them, and then she can also travel through mirrors, and she ends up getting sent to be married off to this guy who's in this family from a different arc, and it's like very cold, very harsh there, and their world is not like one big extended family. There's different families, and they have different capabilities, and it's very political and very like backstabby and such. So she goes there and she's having to navigate this, plus deal with being betrothed to this guy who she doesn't know, and he's very like standoffish and such, and just the journey you go on with Ophelia, and as she navigates this and trying to figure out like what's actually going on. It was just so well done, and I absolutely had such a blast with it. I do believe I know it's translated. I think it's from translated from French. And so yeah, I'm very excited to continue with the series. I already had the second book, and I went ahead and ordered books 3 and 4 from Pango because I'm like, this is a series I want to just binge through. And so I am planning on reading the second book soon, and then the third and fourth book in October and then November, respectively. So, really looking forward to that. So, those are all the books I read. As far as my top 3, so again, this doesn't necessarily correspond with star rating, but number 1 was definitely The One Who Held the Flame, again by Tomas, don't know the last name. And coming of age aspect, the small village kind of survival element there, and then the manifestations of grief and the way that can impact yourself and others. Like, I just had such a great, like, there was such a great lesson within that book, like multiple lessons. So I really enjoyed that. Then the book Woman's Daughter by Kim Michelle Richardson, the narrator, like, I still would have probably put it as one of my favorites even if I had physically read it. But because I did listen to it, the narrator, like, such a perfect narrator for that character. The coming of age aspect, again, like, really love that. And then the prejudice versus the community. So yes, she's kind of no longer being sheltered at this point, and she's out and she's trying to figure out her life, and so she's experiencing prejudice for the first time, like, basically for the first time. But also she has a lot of people in the community behind her as well, which was just, I really like that aspect. And then number 3 is Ghost of Talkeetna by Sarah J. Birdsall. The vibes, the ghosty vibes, like, I just eat that kind of thing up. Absolutely loved it. Again, the community aspect, really enjoyed that. And the history of the town, like, I like that she included the historical little bits and pieces as well. So really enjoyed that. So those are all the books I read. Now, as far as what I'm going to be reading in October, so everything that I didn't get to from my game, it is rolling over. Let me get my cart over here, though. I already moved those books too. But first, this one wasn't from the game, but my husband and I are reading it together. And that is The Last Contract of Asako by Fonda Lee. We're 326 pages in, so we're less than 200 pages left to go. So we'll definitely finish that up this month. It took me a little bit to get into it. I was struggling quite a bit, but now, like, I'm invested and I'm really enjoying it. And then I did start The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty, which is book 2, following the adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, which I absolutely loved. I'm only 62 pages into this, and it's like 484 pages. This one was for Rumpelstiltskin, which was a golden bargain, which definitely works. So we're continuing on following Amina and the aftermath of the events from the first book. But basically, her and her crew are tasked with finding this magical spindle, essentially. And only 62 pages in, but absolutely loving it so far. So I'm really looking forward to continuing this. This one, I had pulled One More Chocolate, and it was a book you'll love. Unfortunately, I did not finish this in time. So that's null and void at this point. But I will be rolling that one over and continuing it in the month of August. Then we have, this one was for my character pick, which we got Eeyore, which is literary or dystopian, and Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the book that caused me to finally pick up the series because I was really highly interested in this character's story. We're following Haymitch in this one. And so this is the book that prompted me to finally pick up the series. Loved all 3 of the original Hunger Games trilogy. And then The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was my absolute favorite so far. And I know this one's going to wreck me, so I definitely want to be kind of right in the right frame of mind. And I can't wait to read this one. So there is that. Then we have, this one was for just a free pick. I also have the little novella for the series in my Christmas list, so I wanted to get this one read. And this is Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker. I read The Simple Wild and absolutely loved it. I wasn't sure I wanted to continue on with the series, though, because I love that one so much, and I thought it worked just fine as is. But I am excited to see our couple in this one. And read it so I can get to that little novella for Christmas time. So there's that one. My books are kind of not cooperating over here. Then we have, let's see here, where are you? There it is. So I got Pick a Romance, and it was Ice Age, a big book. This is big for a romance because it's over 400 pages, and that's The Favorites by Lane Fargo, and so it's 434 pages. So for a romance, it works. And I know this isn't like quite a romance, but it deals with a romantic relationship that's very toxic. And I didn't realize this was like basically a retelling of Wuthering Heights, which I absolutely hated. But I hope this one works better for me. And so we'll just have to see how it goes and if it works for me or not. But I am excited to get to that one. Then this one was for I had gotten Mulan and it was Dragon. I don't do that tongue thing, and so I had chosen Harvest Season by Bryn Weaver, which is the second book in what's the Seasons of Carnage trilogy. Um, I enjoyed the first one, didn't fully love it like I did the Ruinous Love trilogy, but I am excited to get to this. And I chose this one because they're serial killers. And so there's kind of assumptions that they make about each other. And so the same thing with Mushu because he doesn't really look like a dragon and there's assumptions made. And he's not a lizard, he's a dragon. And just kind of like like deceiving looks and such. So that's why I chose this one for that prompt, and I am looking forward to it as well. And then the last one from my game that I haven't gotten to is this one was for Thumbelina, which is Adoption or Magically Gifted Child, and I chose the second book in the Mysterious Benedict Society, which is the Mysterious Benedict Society and the Perilous Journey by Trenton Lee Stewart. And so, while they're not magically gifted, the kids in this are gifted, and there is adoption with the guy that kind of runs the society and such. There are adoption elements to this. So if I can finish all those up, I will win my game and get a reward. So my goal is to do that before September and Aurelium starts. Then for my family book club, The Whisper Man by Alex North won. So we'll be reading that. That's another priority read because it is my family book club pick. And then the rest of these are just ones I just want to get to in the month of August. First up, I don't know why I'm still holding my journal. First up, we have Kingdom of the Feared by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the third book in that series, the third and final book, and I love the first two. Second one didn't quite work for me very well. I still really enjoyed it, like the vibes of it, and I don't think the first one was like all that well written, but the vibes are right up my alley. And so I'm excited to round out that series and read this one. And then likewise, I want to continue on with the Mirror Visitor series. So the second book is The Missing of Claire de Lune, again by Christelle Dabos. And I hope it hits like that first book hit because I love that book so much. And then, like I said, I want to read this so I can read books 3 and 4 in October and November and finish the series up this year. And then we have 2 T. Kingfisher. So we have book 3 and 4 in the Saint of Steel series. So we have Paladin's Hope and Paladin's Faith. I did just want to originally read Paladin's Hope, but I have another T. Kingfisher I want to read in September, and Daggerbound also comes out. And I want to read that in September. I think it comes out in August, but I want to grab it and read it in September. And I could be mistaken because I have several new releases coming out and they're all kind of getting muddled in my brain. And so I want to wrap up this series and so I can read Daggerbound and then this other Teaching Fisher that I have in September. So I just want to round these two out, and they're such fun, quick, easy reads. And then I do have a audiobook from Libby, which is Julie Chan is Dead by, I can't remember the author right now, but I'll of course have a picture inserted here. And so I have the audiobook from Libby. I do need to return it, like I only have 10 days left and there is somebody waiting. So I do plan on listening to that this week while I do chores and such. So I do have that audiobook, and I'll probably add on a few other audiobooks. I think what I'm going to start doing is try to do 4 audiobooks a month, one for each week, while I do chores and such. So those are the books I read and the books that I have coming up. If you've read any of these, I would love to know that down in the comments below. Or if you're interested in any of these, they're on your radar or you have them coming on an upcoming TBR, let me know. Let me know your favorite book from July as well. If you just want to let me know you're here and you're supporting the channel by commenting, it really does help. Then go ahead and leave that rabbit emoji or any type of animal you would like. But I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.